say the game is getting old. Monday morning and your coffee's cold. Life is not what you want it to be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and it's Leadership Day! Woo, baby. What the heck is leadership anyway? And why should you care? Oh, you think that's just what I'm saying? No. It's the name of the book. What the heck is leadership? Why should I even care? I don't know. Yes, you know why? Well, you may not know why, but here's the deal. Dr. Gary DePaul is with me. He's going to tell you why. He's going to tell you what the heck leadership is, and he's going to tell you why you should care. Yeah, what do you think of that? Yeah, that's pretty awesome, isn't it? He's fantastic. He's a lot of fun. The book is absolutely fabulous. It's great. It is, I would say, when I read this book, here's what I'd say. I'm going to put this on my Amazon 5-star review, because it is an Amazon 5-star review book, in my opinion. These 7 principles are 7 principles that anyone can do, and regardless of what your position and title is in your company, or even as an entrepreneur, let's say you're a solopreneur like I am, these principles are going to benefit you. I promise you they will. It's fantastic. The book's great. He's great. He's fun. And you're going to enjoy him. But before we get to him, let's do what we do every week, right? And we talk about your training in terms of the 4 areas of your life: physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And the reason why we're calling it training is because, it's not where you're at, it's what you're doing. That's really the most important thing, ultimately, right? I mean, you could say you're healthy, but what are you doing for your health? That, to me, is ultimately what's more important. Right? In any area of your life, what are you doing to be healthy? So, the question then becomes, like, if we talk about physically, and we look at it as a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being my training is just awful, and then 10 being, man, my training's so good. Jay, you can't believe it. I want to know where you're at in your training, and here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a course of exercise, right? And then when we talk about exercise, what we're talking about here is we're talking about, not doing necessarily dumb things. We're just talking about what types of things can you do. Like, it could be just getting a regular walk. It could be, like I did, like cinder blocks and galvanized pipe, and I put together a gym, It could be something like that. It could be something, like, you have friends who do videos, and they do, who are, really in great shape, and they're giving you ideas what to do. Are you doing something on a regular basis, right? That's the point about exercise. But then the other piece is, are you eating right? Right? It's so easy to eat fast food. God, people, we got to stop, right? It's just not the healthiest thing for us. It's not the best thing for our bodies. So, what are you putting into your body? We got to pay more attention to what we're putting into our body, right? Eliminate the diet sodas, the regular sodas. We got to eliminate that stuff, right? And then, it's getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, those things. So if you were to put all that together, how would you say your training is going if you were to put the exercise, the diet, the, sleep, and the water? How would you say, scale 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing in your training, right? Now, it's not important what the number is, right? It's important, but what's really more important is finding out why your training is at that level. And then it's the next question, what are you going to do right now to change that? Okay, that's really more important. And that's true in every one of these areas, right? Okay, so you got your physical number, scale of 1 to 10, right? Next number is the mental number, and that's your mental training. And you know what? Book reading is great mental training, because you got to be an active participant in your mental training. You cannot be a mental loafer. I love that term. My wife gave me that term. A lot of people just want to sit and think that by sitting and absorbing information that they're really somehow training themselves mentally. Actually, you're not. You're actually mentally lazy, right? You've got to do something that is actively engaging your mind. Learning, the whole point of learning is to be able to take, God, you know what? Gary says this in his book. Learn, do, assess, and then rinse and repeat. Well, he may not have said rinse and repeat, but the point is, if you want to be active mentally, learn, do, assess yourself, go back, learn, do, assess, and keep going. That's active mental preparation, right? It's not sitting. And by the way, two halves of the brain, left and right. So you got to work logically, you got to work the creative side, you got to do both, right? All right, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say your mental training's going, right? Okay, you got two numbers. Next number is the emotional training. And, it's interesting that Gary talked about EQ in the book, emotional quotients, right? And, sometimes we talk about emotional intelligence, EI is another one that we talk about, and he uses RUM and RUM squared in his book. I say the same thing, I just don't call it RUM and RUM squared. Okay, here's the two areas of your emotional training that you need to watch. The first one is how well are you able to control your emotions under stress and pressure? Right? That's really, if I could simplify it down, that's really critical. Because as our special operations forces guys who have been on the show have all said, when you're under stress and you're under pressure, right? When you're under fire, okay, you don't really rise to your training. When you're that exhausted, you fall to the level of your training. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. That's really the truth. So when it comes to your emotions, you have to constantly be practicing and testing and working and controlling your emotions on that one side, right? That's first half of the equation, right? Of your emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, your emotional training. The second half of your emotional training is how well are you able to tap into and understand really the emotions of other people. That's critical. Matter of fact, it's critical even to being in leadership. It's critical that you really understand the emotions of others. You can't just hear the words that they're saying. What are the words conveying, feeling? What is it? Part of our problem with why we don't understand it is because our emotional vocabulary is so shoddy. We just don't have a very good emotional vocabulary. By the way, there's so many ways that you can improve that. Just Google emotional vocabulary, right? They even have pictures with little faces to let you know, the different variations of emotions that we have. And there's so many, right? There may be just a few basic emotions, but there's so many variations within between, all right? And it would be helpful if you started learning what those were. So if you were to evaluate yourself in those two areas, how well are you able to control your emotions under stress, pressure, and under fire, and then how well are you able to tap into the emotions of others and truly understand them, right? Then how would you say your emotional training's going on a scale of 1 to 10, right? 3 numbers. Then finally, the spiritual number, right? A lot of people, are a little bugged by the spiritual thing. I get every now and then somebody will write to me, go, Jan, I'm not really spiritual. I'm not buying into the spiritual piece. Well, I'll tell you what, we're all spiritual, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. We all have a spiritual piece of us. So we all have this sense of something that goes beyond who we are, meaning that, there's a spirit of a person that makes them persevere in ways that they should have not persevered. We all have faith, right? We all believe that even in the midst of a pandemic, at one time, this is going to get over. Is it over? No, but we all believe that it will. Well, that's faith. That's spiritual, right? And then there's this other piece of, how are we able to maintain peace in the midst of chaos? I want you to think about that for a second. It's not emotional. Something inside you that centers you, that brings you back to center. That's the spiritual piece, right? And whether that's God or meditation or nature, whatever that you tend to use to try to bring you back to center, that's what I want to ask you is, how is that working? How is that training that you're doing so that you're able to have a sense of peace? I'm not talking about emotions here. That you just have this sense of stillness inside you. How well is that working, right? And then if it's not working, what are you going to have to do to change it, right? So you got the 4 numbers, right? Those 4 numbers are like the legs of a chair, right? And the reason why I call it the legs of a chair, because if those 4 numbers are uneven, right, whatever, it puts awkward pressure on what I would call on our being of balance. Our being is out of balance. And even when we're sitting in an awkward chair, what happens when we're out of balance, right, our posture is affected over time. And then the other thing is, if our numbers are too low, we can't really eat nutritiously because we can't sit at the table in the right way to do that. And as I say every week, I always get someone else who seems to have all of those 4 areas in order. And his name is Gary DePaul. He is Dr. Gary DePaul, sorry. He's got more than 20 years of, he's been With more than 20 years as a practitioner and academic experience, Gary DePaul collaborates with executives and management from a wide range of organizations to improve how employees practice leadership. He is an author and leadership advisor who regularly presents to professional associations such as the International Society of Performance Improvement, the Society for Human Resource Management, and the Association for Talent Development. In addition to his consulting and academic background, Dr. DePaul draws on many years of practical experience at various levels in the financial services, engineering, retail, and professional service companies. Dr. DePaul has his PhD and education master's from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign Department of Educational Organization and Leadership, and completed his bachelor's degree at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, and welcome for the first time to A New Direction, Gary DePaul. Welcome, Gary.
We are here.
Yes, we are here. Go.
That introduction, by the way, was painful. And in this way, I've heard it a couple of dozen times.
Okay.
This time you were talking, I wanted to yell, hallelujah or amen. Yes. But, I'm sitting here.
You know what? That would be the first time. It wouldn't be the first time that I had a guest go, yeah, preach it, man. The book, you know what? This has been the fun part of your book. And I think you meant it because it's not a real long read. I mean, it's about 90 pages or so. It's not a real long read. And by the way, it's available in Audible. Ooh, wow. Audible, and it's also available in Kindle version as well, Amazon. But it's not a long read, but I got the sense that you made this very real to you because it's your passion. And in that it's your passion, there was kind of a little bit of a sense of humor that said, listen, I've been around good leadership and bad leadership. And you know what? When bad leadership's bad, woohoo, it stinks. And when good leadership is good, wow. Is that a game changer for everybody?
It's a game changer.
Right? And you pull this right out, right at the very beginning of the book, and it's in chapter 1, and you say how leadership will change your life. And I don't think, and what spoke to me in this first chapter was one phrase that you said. You said, like laughter, practicing leadership is contagious. But we don't always know what the heck it is, but it has more effects than that. Why don't we think about, I think we take it for granted, don't we?
That's fair. Too many people say leader and they mean manager, and they just assume they know what it is. In our heads, we think we know what leadership is, and because of that, we do take it for granted.
Well, we take it for let's chat about this for a second. Maybe we take it for granted when it's good, but we certainly don't take it for granted when it's bad.
when there's an absence of leadership, when you're with someone who comes into an organization and displays the antithesis of what leadership is, you know it. And I had a director say to me once in his department of 80, 90 people, he said, if you'd asked me before this person showed up, can one person ruin a department? And I would have said, no way. This one person ruined the department. So when it's bad, it's bad.
It is really true. And I remember you stating that in your book, that one person can absolutely ruin a department. I'm not going to jump there, but it is really true, isn't it, that we kind of sometimes overlook that one person. Sometimes, and listen, as a small business owner, right? Sometimes we overlook that person, especially if that person is a top producer.
Yeah, totally. And the one trend that I picked up, and Liz Wiseman picked up, and a few other these leadership authors have picked up, is that it takes a long time to get rid of someone like that. They're doing great, they're producing, they're saying the right things, but you don't see the chaos and the destruction happening behind. And it could be pretty bad. Here we go. We got the tail.
Yeah. Yeah, right. We got the tail starts to wag the dog. I think, yeah, I mean, I have been around other people in leadership roles, right? They've been put in leadership roles. By the way, just because you've been put in a leadership role, let's be clear here, because Gary's very clear, right? I mean, just because you're put in a leadership role doesn't make you a great, or that you are deserving, or that you should be, or that you're practicing leadership, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But, any role can be a leadership role.
Right.
You could be a team member, and that could be a leadership role. We just think of leadership as management and the people in charge. So if you're a leader in a company, you're a VP, director, manager. But, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of experts out there that say people who are in executive positions, some of them just are not leaders.
Well, and we have you talk about in chapter 2 that there's this brief history of leadership. And and by the way, you make a joke about it. You go, I told you it was going to be brief. I mean, you weren't kidding. I mean, you literally handed us about 5 sentences about the history of leadership. But really, great leadership has always existed, and it's always come from a variety of different sources historically. You can look through history. The leadership that we see today has always existed, but sadly what's happened is that we have focused on leaders who, I would say, I guess they're leaders, but we've focused on people who have been extraordinarily successful, generally in the financial realm. And we've assigned the term leader to them if they're financially successful. I think as I was reading your book, one of the things that is a monumental disservice in the change of our history of leadership is redefining that just because somebody is financially successful does not make them a great leader or it mean that they're in top shape in their leadership. Would you agree?
Yeah, it means they're financially successful.
Right.
If they have a bunch of people in companies and businesses, they own a bunch of businesses.
Right.
It doesn't mean they're practicing leadership. They're just very good at generating the money and executing the business.
This is one of those things where this just in. I kind of think about what question I was going to ask, but then as I asked this question, another question just popped into my head, and that's why you and I are doing the show. But part of the problem is we actually enable that, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's in our conversations. It's in the way we address people that have authority. We do it to ourselves, and it's part of our language. And what you're seeing now in the 21st century, there's a little bit of uncoupling from doing that.
Yeah, there's a little.
It's slow.
Yeah, because social media is not uncoupling.
Okay.
From because there's somebody who studies the cultures of social media and what people do on it and how they act and a lot of times act poorly. One of the things that I see is that we are still giving kudos to people that have stuff, right? Versus people who actually have something to say.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And so then that makes your concept of, what the heck is leadership? It actually kind of makes it a little more foreign. And I think it makes it harder for people to grasp. Would you not agree?
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing I would add is that leadership, we think of leadership as the big stuff.
Right.
You do something, you're leading, everyone sees it. It's fantastic.
Right.
I've been interviewing a bunch of people and I'm validating it with them by what their stories. They're telling me leadership happens in the small things.
Absolutely.
And you may not even know that you are being led until years later. You think back and it's like, oh man, that person changed my life. with the way he or she treated me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we have a golden opportunity in every situation that we're in. And I just spoke with a young lady at a grocery store who said, who had studied at a fine university, and she, said, well, I'm back here at the grocery store. And I said, whoa. She goes, I took a step back. I said, whoa, you're not the same person you were when you were here the first time. So you didn't take a step back. You now have an opportunity to lead a whole bunch of people because she's now in a management role, right? And I said, you didn't take a step back. You can't be the same. And all of a sudden she teared up because she had never thought about that before, that she had an opportunity to lead because she wasn't the same person that she was when she was here before. She had an opportunity then, but she couldn't see it, right? And nobody had just spoken it. And I think sometimes we have this golden opportunity to speak truth and life and encouragement into other people. And it's part of one of your, it's one of the 7 that we're going to get to. But it doesn't matter who you are. It didn't have to be me, right? It could have been anybody. We can all do that for each other, right?
Yeah, definitely. Anyone could lead from the perspective of their role,
right?
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
We don't, depending on how knowledgeable and aware we are of our own abilities to lead, affects how we actually lead.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? His name is Dr. Gary A. DePaul. The book is entitled, What the Heck is Leadership? Why Should I Care? Right? And you're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, you know what? I talk about my 2 great sponsors, right? Epic Physical Therapy, right? I use them. They are fantastic. They're awesome. Professional athletes use them. Why? Because they're fantastic and they're awesome. That's the reason why they go. Matter of fact, I've seen athletes from all over the world come and use them. Professional athletes come and use them from all over the world. In Raleigh, North Carolina. Why? Because they really do understand how the body works and moves and how to get you back to where you want to be. Here's the thing. They will provide you with a customized treatment plan tailored for your needs. Why? Because they understand the need to treat the entire body as a functional whole, not just your symptoms or your injury. So whether you are you got hurt, or whether you just want to move better, whether you just are suffering from a few aches and pains, don't look any further. Get your epic relief, get your epic recovery, get your epic results by going to Epic Physical Therapy. That's epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors for more than 35 years. That's right, they're starting their 36th year this year. And you know what? They're still at the top of their real estate game, and they help people all over the world. They do. No matter where you live, they can help you find the best expert. How do they do that? Well, see, they're independently owned and operated, so they don't belong to a national company, so they've created relationships with the best people all over the world. Yeah. At the end of the day, isn't it all about the relationships? And that's why Linda for 36 years has been in the top of her game and her team, because she understood that the relationship is the most important part of anything, including the transaction. If your relationships are solid, guess what? Your business is going to be solid. That's the bottom line. If your relationships are solid with your people, guess what? Your relationships are going to be solid. And you know what? When you take care of your relationships, that means you're going to take care of your people, which means that ultimately they're going to take care of your housing needs. So when you're ready to sell your home or buy your home, don't look any further. Look for the relationship maker and maintainer. Look for Linda Craft and Team Realtors. You can learn more by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here with Dr. Gary A. DePaul and his book, What the Heck is Leadership? Why should I even care? All right, well, we're about to dig into some of this a little bit more. We've been having a little bit of fun, kind of giving you a little bit of a foundation. But now we're going to dig into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts. But before we do that, I think, you've kind of briefly mentioned it, and you talk about this in Chapter 3. But I think we need to do a kind of a, public service announcement of like, let's make sure we understand that leadership is not management. So let's help us understand management and first, and what it is and what it's and how it's not leadership.
Yeah. First, management, it's a formal role. If you went to someone's job posting site, you'll see managers, right? Vice presidents, things like that. Those are formal roles with specific tasks that they do. But if you look at those lists, you're not going to see leader. You might see something like project leader. But when you look at the description, it's really describing a management role. But here's the big thing. Here's a definition that I'll throw at you. And it's this. It's getting things done through other people, or the art of getting things done through others. I used to think in graduate school, that's what leadership is. My gosh, that makes perfect sense. Well, that's Mary Parker Follett's definition of management. So management, when you're a people manager, because you could be a process manager, project manager, manager of businesses and structures and things like that. When you manage people, your role is to get things done through other people, through the people that report up to you. But that's not leadership. We talk like it is, having a vision, being able to guide people to do stuff, but it's not. That's just what management is. So think of management as a concrete role that you can have, but leadership is not a role.
Okay. All right. I'm following you, and I think everybody else who's listening and watching this show live on Castbox FM and Facebook is following you as well, and they're getting it. They're saying that okay, I can, and they're going, all right, that sounds all right. So, by the way, before I go to that question, I just want to say something that you said that was really funny in this chapter.
Okay.
You said one thing that drives me nuts, and this is a quote. One thing that drives me nuts is reading or watching videos of experts who claim to have the answer to how leadership and management differ. In one video, an expert associates management with being smart and having a high IQ with leadership, and while leadership is having a high EQ. And I thought it was funny that you were so vulnerable to tell us what gets under your skin. And management and leadership get under your skin, brother.
It does, and I will never be able to get, I think, the term leader out of the language. It will never happen. Right. But what kills me is when experts go on, and if you do a search on the internet, I won't say which service, what your favorite service,
sure,
and do a search for manager versus leader or management versus leadership, and it's like a wrestling match. It's like a fight between the good guy and the bad guy. And these people make managers the bad guys. And here I am. I've spent, 15 years or so in management positions. I'm going, what the? That's an insult. I mean, it's crazy.
I just found it to be funny. You actually did use the word. It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
That's the phrase you used. Okay, so if management is this formal role consisting of well-defined tasks, and you even separate it into 4 categories. There's managers of organizations, processes, projects, and people. And you also talk about Gary Rummler and his management responsibilities. So then let's move on to chapter 4. Well, what the heck is leadership?
Yeah, what is it? It's not a role. It's not a task. It's a practice. When you're doing a particular role, when you're doing your processes, when you're working with people, you practice leadership. Okay, that's not defining it, but it's distinguishing the difference between what a role is and what this is. So what's a practice? I could go into it if you want real quick.
Because you talk in chapter 4, the first element of leadership is bi-directional, where management is not.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an example. And Jay, I want you to be a detective, literally, in this situation. You're at a grocery store.
Okay.
I got your hat. All right.
Yeah.
and you're observing two cashiers.
Okay.
And you have in front of you this binder here of all the processes for this company, and you have something in front of you called the point of sale steps.
Okay.
And your job is to make sure that cashier one, Yolanda,
Okay.
and the other one, James, they're following the process.
All right.
You go through your checklist. They do all, they greet, they efficiently move product over the scanners.
Check.
They bag things properly.
Check.
They ask, did you find anything? Did you find everything? And then you're done. And they thank you for shopping. They both do it.
Check.
Done.
Check.
Uh-huh. But here's the really weird thing. Yolanda's line is a lot longer than James. And it's odd. There's something different. And it seems that when there's people, it's clear that you can get out of that store faster by going through James's line, they still get into Yolanda's line. But when you listen to it, you pick up some differences. For example, Yolanda greets someone by name, a customer by name. Yolanda asked, that platter you bought the other day, how did it turn out with that party? And Yolanda might say, there's some coupons coming up tomorrow. I can't tell you what they are, but pay attention to them because I think you're going to like it. Or they might even recommend something. It's a different experience. And when she says, thank you for shopping, she might say, thank you for shopping, but tell me how it went with that new product you bought, and it's a different experience.
Right.
But same process, but she practiced the process differently. So if you're into Lean, Six Sigma, if you do any type of mapping, this is something I ought to know, because when you look at a process map, it's not going to tell you the practices.
Right.
So there's this stuff that goes into it, and leadership is one of those stuff that goes into it.
This is the piece where it gets a little bit, I think, for people. I totally am so on board with this because people want to put leadership into a bunch of do's and don'ts, right? Because they want to say, well, if I do this and I don't do that, then I must be a pretty good leader. But it's really more than that. There is a bigger picture that you just can't check off.
Yes.
Here.
I would think of it as, I'm all about unlabeling things, putting it at the auto label. It's like a mindset.
Yeah.
It's a way of thinking. It's a way of approaching what you do. And it could be as an individual contributor. It could be as a manager. It could be as an executive. So why don't I tell the definition, give you my definition of what leadership is.
Yeah, go.
Yeah. So I've led up to it. It's a big buildup. Leadership, it's bidirectional. It's a performance improvement discipline. So there's some ways of thinking about it. And the technical definition is it's designed to mature individual mental and moral qualities, capabilities, and behaviors. Okay, that sounded really technical. Well, let me rephrase it. It's helping other people build character. That might be a little bit more understandable. But so you think about it, it's not about getting people to do stuff. And David Marquez says this in some of his talks. It's about getting people to think for themselves and changing the environment where they work so that they can be at their best.
I could not agree more. We get stuck into traditional, which is I think in chapter 12 or 13, where you talk about traditional, what we consider traditional leadership. I say this about coaching executives, when I coach executives, and I'm sure you do the same thing. I am not trying to get them to do stuff. I'm trying to build their character. I'm trying to get them to learn. I'm trying to get them to think. It's really, when I'm coaching, the greatest coaches I ever had when I played, The greatest coaches I ever had. Yes, they had to give me some technical things, but the best thing they ever did for me was they built character traits in me. They taught me how to think for myself, how to make better decisions for myself. That was what they did for me.
Yeah, Kevin McNulty, who I interviewed recently, he talks about this, and he talks about the coaches. And he said, Gary, if you want to find the coaches, the athletic coaches, NFL coaches that are really good, look at how long their assistants stay. They may stay 2 years, but they leave and they become the coach,
Right.
the head coach of a college, of another football team.
Right.
They move on to better positions. And that's because that coach builds the character of those people and helps them excel and really helps them develop and grow and become a better person.
And so often, I think leaders get caught into, I just got to make my people more competent.
Yeah, and get them to do the stuff I need them to do. That's all that is.
Right.
The forward stuff is like the fluff. The lighter stuff is what you're being judged on.
Right.
Oh, by the way, let me say one thing about coaching. You're not putting information in the people you coach. What you're doing is you're having them reach inside themselves and figure stuff out and learn things and develop and recognize patterns. That's what you're doing. It's not a outside in, it's an inside out approach.
Yeah, do you know how your statement said, the one thing that drives me nuts?
Yes.
The one thing that drives me nuts is coaches who feel like they have to tell their clients what to do. Right? That's not coaching.
That's not coaching. No, that's either consulting, it's training, it's teaching.
Right.
It's
maybe.
It's not coaching, it's mentoring.
Maybe.
All those things are putting stuff into people, giving stuff. But coaching isn't giving anything. You're not telling them what to do. You're questioning what they're doing. You're making them think critically, and they're having to reach in themselves and look at themselves in a way that they're not familiar with.
Do you know what the worst question I hear from other coaches is that I get asked? And because this is where I know they're off scale, is when they ask me, how do I motivate those people? I think it's the worst question, right? Because I think what happens in leadership, they think leadership is about motivating people, which, by the way, is not one of your 7.
No, it's a byproduct. Yes, you can be motivated. You can become encouraged.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. When we look at definitions of leadership, there's a tendency of defining it in the outcomes. Being motivated, getting things done, improving the work environment, increasing the feeling of safety among the team. Those are short-term outcomes. They're the results of helping people develop and grow and become better at what they do. Mm-hmm. And leadership, it's all about the other person.
Right.
It's not about me. It's not about you.
Right.
But I know this happens with coaching. By doing coaching, if you're a mentor, by doing mentoring, I think that it helps you as well develop your character because you learn from the experience just as much. The bidirectional part.
You've taught it. You've taught at college, right? Did we talk? You're about to.
I'm about to, but I won't say where because they haven't made it official yet.
Right. Okay. Well, having taught at 4 or 5 universities.
Oh, yeah. I have guest lectured.
Okay. Well, having to run a class 4 or 5 different classes in 4 or 5 different universities. Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I feel bad for the students. Here's why. I learn more than they do. As an instructor, I learn far more than they do. Because as an instructor, that's why I feel sorry for them, because it's not fair. I thought my job was to educate, right? But the truth is, I'm the one who's getting the education in the process. That was the thing that struck me when you said, the truth of the matter is, if you're really in leadership, you're learning far more probably than you're actually giving.
Yes, definitely. And you have to, and that's one of the principles is you have to continuously learn and develop and grow at the same time. And if you're not doing that, then it just hurts your capabilities to lead.
Well, we're going to get to learn, do, and assess, because that was a teaser I did earlier, right? Because we did that teaser. But you know what? You're listening to Gary DePaul and his book, What the Heck is Leadership? Why should I care? And you're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, talking about my two sponsors, and I love them dearly. Heidi and Andrew, sites who own Epic Physical Therapy. You could not find two better owners and outstanding people. I have known them for years, and when they took over Epic, it was just one of the best things that probably happened to the company. They are fantastic. They have great people. Their people are absolutely fantastic. And they also understand that in addition to the people, you got to give people the right tools in order for them to be successful. So that's why every Epic physical therapy facility offers the most advanced top-of-the-line equipment. Some things like the Ultra G anti-gravity treadmill, which means that you can run without feeling pressure on your joints. The Normatec compression sleeves, which allows you to feel like your joints are hold together and that you could do more. The Game Ready, which is basically ice and compression that takes the swelling out of your body. I could use that right now, as a matter of fact. So I may have to go hit them after the show. And then, of course, you know what? They have they're trained in certified in the most comprehensive cutting-edge treatments like blood flow restriction therapy, fantastic, dry needling, great. And then cupping, which is manipulating your muscle through the skin. It's fantastic. Look, here's the deal. When you're ready for your epic relief, epic recovery, and your epic results, just start with Epic Physical Therapy. You just go to epicpt.com. Literally, it's EPICPT.com. You're going to thank me. Trust me, you will. And then Linda Craft and Team Realtors, right? 36th year in business. And, we've talked about them as being, the relationship realtor, and that the importance of relationships, not only with her clients, but with her team. But then, there's something else. And this one other piece is that she also understood that memories are made in the home, right? We're all making memories in the home. Birth of a child happened, when you brought that baby home, right? Into the first home you had, right? You remember where that home was, or the puppy, or, maybe it was graduation. But we have memories in the home. Maybe it was going to grandma's house, right? There's memories. And Linda understood the importance of those memories, right? Because in every memory, there's also a relationship. It still comes down to relationship, doesn't it? And that's where it comes down for Linda Craft and Team Realtors. At the end of the day, when it's about your home, it's about the relationships that you made, the relationships that you created, the relationships that you maintained, all surrounding your home, right? So when it comes to memories and relationships, go with the memory maker, the relationship maintainer. Go with Linda Craft and Team Realtors. You can learn more by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here with Dr. Gary DePaul and his book, What the Heck is Leadership, and Why Should I Even Care? And we're going to start digging into, are you having a good time, Gary, by the way?
I'm having a great time. In fact, can I say something
Sure.
Briefly about your sponsors? That's really cool.
What's that?
Both of them follow principles of leadership. And I really do believe this. Like if you're going to physical therapy, they set up the environment so you can successfully recover physically. Where if you tried to do it on your own, it may not work out at all. And with the realtor, I know people in realty that actually do lead their customers. They build relationships like you were describing,
yeah.
But they help them develop and grow also.
Right. Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. It goes against the grain for a lot of people. I'm just telling you, as you well know, in this thing. So let's jump over to chapter 6, and it's entitled, Do You Really Believe? And let's talk about the first principle of leadership, which is?
Believing in others.
Why is that? Whoa, Gary. Okay, I'm playing devil's advocate here, so go with me. Okay. Whoa, Gary. Come on, man. What do you mean leadership? Believe in others. What the heck? What the heck?
I will say something about these principles. They are overt secrets. Believe in others is an overt secret. I can say to you, Jay, you should believe in others. And you would say, yeah, of course I believe in others.
Sure.
It's common sense. Well, it's not necessarily common practice. I've just interviewed about this month alone, about 15, 17 people, and their descriptions, their stories that they brought to me describe believing in others. And I'll give you an example to kind of bring this to life. Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah. I started at a job. I was hired for one reason and one reason only. It was to fire 2 people that were assigned to me.
Oh, awesome.
I had only 2 people assigned to me. I was hired to fire them.
I'm sorry, that shouldn't be funny.
It's hysterical.
The fact that you were hired to fire, that's just ridiculous.
I know. I was being interviewed. The VP walks in and he says, "Have you ever fired anyone?" And I said, "Yeah, but man, it killed me." Yeah. But you fired someone, right? Yeah. Okay, I don't need to know anything else. And he walked out. I was like, what?
Right.
It was weird.
Right.
Here's why he thought these 2 people should be fired. He would walk by their cubicles, they're on those little cubicles. One person is balancing his checkbook. The other person is surfing the web. He hears stories about them talking to neighbors about football and things like that, and not non-work stuff. And it's just like they're disturbances. So they're obviously bad people. Turns out when I walked in, neither of them were fired. I didn't fire either of them because I found out what was wrong. They didn't have enough work. They were sitting around and they didn't have enough work to do. And so I put an end to that. I gave them plenty of work. They're both at the same company years later. One is a manager and well respected, and the other one is one of the best designers in the company. But it's because I didn't go in with a neutral stance or a negative stance. I went in thinking that when they woke up in the morning, they didn't say, well, what can I do to mess up my work today? What can I do to make Jay's day miserable? No, they want to do well. And when you have that belief, it becomes, and about biases, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Sure.
You see things in people that you don't see. Right. And it just takes away different biases that you might have. And that's the thing about believing in others. I had a VP tell me real quick that when she adapted that, and she didn't call it believing in others, when she adapted that attitude, the people did extraordinary things because she believed that they can do it. And she set it up so that this gave them the room to do it. And they did.
The problem, as a psychological professional, one of the problems that I think that happens with people when it comes to believing in others is sometimes they look at so many other behaviors, right, that they can't get themselves past what they see.
Yeah.
And so rather than believing in the person, they're only focused on the things that they see, and they don't have the whys behind the behavior. They just see it and they go, well, there's no reason to put hope in them, right?
Yep. And then they look for things to confirm that belief.
Right, which is confirmation bias, right?
Yes.
Or and one of my favorites is called illusory correlation, right?
Okay, I don't know that one.
Yeah, so you know how what we do is we create this illusion of correlation. For instance, every time it rains, Bird's going to poop on my car, right? So there's this illusory correlation. Well, we do the same thing with people. We create this illusion that every time that I'm going to give this person some rope, they're going to do this, right? And we create this correlation that then confirms our bias when it really has nothing to do with anything else. It's kind of as you talk about in the book, and it's one of my favorite terms. It's called fundamental attribution bias, and which is actually in chapter 7. But it's one of my favorite. It happens to be one of my favorite subject matter that I would teach in Intro to Psychology and other psychology classes, because we want to. Here's an example of fundamental attribution error. I'll just give it out to you. Somebody is driving in a car, and you see the car weaving down the road, right? And it's going over the line, and it's going down to the ditch, and it goes all the way across the other lane. And the first thing you go is, doggone it, they're texting, driving, or they're drunk, right? Then you see the car pull over, and the lady runs out, and there's this giant bumblebee following her, right? You were wrong, weren't you? You'd made the judgment, the fundamental attribution error is that you judged texting or they're drunk, when the fact of the matter is there was a bee in the car. But we wouldn't go there first, because we're thinking about our danger first rather than that, which is why in chapter 7, the second principle, right, is go ahead, and how fundamental attribution error kicks in.
Can I first share with you a reversed example real quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you can do whatever you want to. This is your show, man.
I'm in a parking lot at night. I just walked out of the store. I get in my car. I'm in a little MR2, Toyota MR2,
Right.
93. I'm driving out of the parking lot, and coming towards me is an SUV, and there's a kid, a teenager, sticking his head out the window, and he's waving like this. And I'm thinking, I'm going to die. What really was happening is he was trying to get my attention to let me know my lights were off. I attribute, because of this waving of the arms, I attribute that to hostility.
Right.
And I attribute it to something negative, but he was trying to do me a favor.
Yeah.
Is that not bizarre?
But it's what we do.
Yeah.
It's how we operate as human beings, right?
Exactly.
The key though, and this is really part of the whole piece of leadership, is being self-aware. I mean, really, that's critical to every one of your principles. Every one of your principles is to be self-aware that you're capable of doing this.
Yeah, and then you take the principles and you help other people become self-aware.
Right.
You know, and that's why I know people like EQ. That's why I like rum.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right.
Recognize the emotions, the behaviors, understand why they're happening,
right,
and then manage them for myself and for other people. Right. So rum squared means me and then others.
Right. Right. Which, by the way, is a perfect lead-in to the second leadership principle, which is connect with others.
Yeah, this is huge. This is where I'll share it with a real brief story. A guy named Randy Moon, at the beginning of that chapter, I talk about it. He takes over a department. He meets with everyone, and instead of talking about this is a strategy, this is what we're going to do, blah blah blah, he starts telling a story about how he was kidnapped in Argentina by people that wanted to do some serious harm to him. And he gets out of it in the long run. But the weird thing was, afterwards, I walked up to a group of people and started talking. They were like, man, this guy is really cool. I can't wait to get into his office. I think he's going to be great for our department. And it's all because he was vulnerable, said, I'm a real person. Like you, bad stuff happens, sometimes worse than others.
Yep.
You know, and there's a connection there, where when you're vulnerable, when you're allowing people to know what you're thinking, we call it congruency. Your thoughts, your emotions are congruent with what you say and how you act. It develops this connection with the people around you, and then coupled with the other principles, the extraordinary can happen.
Yeah, well, it does. See, this is the thing. Vulnerability creates safety. I've said this over and over again. When we're able to be vulnerable, we actually make people safe. We can make them feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, sometimes we can be vulnerable, make people feel uncomfortable, but in that uncomfortable moment, they actually feel safe.
If I am going to be open and honest with you, I'm giving you permission to be open and honest with me.
Exactly.
When I say I screw up and apologize for it, that gives you permission to say I also screwed up and
right.
and get permission to get forgiven for it. It's just a way of allowing people to behave how they normally would with people that they're close with, and that enables teams to develop relationships like they never had before.
We're going to do one more principle real quick because we're running out of time. Chapter 8, leadership is not about you. The principle is put others first.
Yeah. That is huge. It's definitely not about you. And people think, okay, why do I want to go into leadership or practice leadership? I want to make myself better. No, it's not. It's about other people. In the military, they talk about taking care of the people before you take care of yourself. Joe Rodriguez, I talk about in the book. He's a good friend of mine. He is the quintessential person who takes care of the people around him. He puts them first. He recognizes them. If things go wrong, he'll take ownership of that, his part of it. When things go right, he'll give you the credit. He'll recognize you for what you've done. It's really a powerful way of behaving and thinking. And when you integrate that into how you behave, when it becomes background as a guiding way of acting, it changes everything.
It does change everything. When we move from our own selfish, narcissistic wants and needs, and we start looking at the needs and wants of others first, it not only changes others, it changes us. It's powerful.
I call it stewardship.
Yeah, and it's powerful. You realize we've been on an hour?
You sure it's not 15 minutes?
It feels like it every time I do this. So you've been great. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. The show's called A New Direction because we help people all over the world find a new direction in their life, in leadership and success, in their life or their career and business. You've been an amazing guest. If you could leave the listeners with a new direction based on what the heck is leadership and why should I care, what would Dr. Gary DePaul leave the listeners with?
I'll leave them with the challenge. Okay. For the next 30 days, have a notebook with you. And when you start your day, write something in it that you're grateful for from the previous day. Small things like someone opened a door for someone else. Someone made a comment that was nice. Write it down. Don't tell anyone, just do it, and do that for 30 days. Not much will happen other than, oh gosh, I have to do this now. But if you do it for 30 days, things will begin to change in how you view people, how you think, how you interact. And it could be a powerful thing. So that's why I leave people with a challenge to think a little bit differently about how you behave and perform with other people.
You just spoke my language.
Amen, brother. Hallelujah.
I am a gratitude. Wake up first thing in the morning, write down 7 things I'm grateful for. I started it, I don't know how many years ago. And it was challenged from a book of all things that I listened to by a guy by the name of Rabbi Daniel Lapin. Said, challenge you to do this for 30 straight days, gratitude. I was like, all right, I got nothing loose here, I'll just do it. I'm still doing it. It's that powerful.
Each time it's an increment, and it becomes something called the incremental effect in finance. where not much happens at first.
Yep.
But roughly around 20, 30 days, not because you're forming a habit, but you start to experience a difference in your life. And I think you can attest to that.
Yep.
Just from what you just said.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you for what you do and the service for reaching out to people. I meant to say that at the beginning. I'm all throughout the episodes thinking, man, I'm so thankful that Jay is doing this and serving the community in this way and bringing ideas and concepts to people that did not have that before. So that's why I listen to your show. I'm still catching up, I just found out about it last year from Ed Muzio, one of your guests.
Oh, Ed's great. Iterate. He did. Yeah.
I talked to him today.
Iterate
and
management,
and as soon as I listened to one episode, it was like, my brain just went, the opening just went, and it, hallelujah,
Thank you.
like I wanted to say at the beginning. But so thank you for what you do. And I still have a few episodes to catch up on.
Well, thank
you've been doing this a while.
I have 3. Yeah, we'll be going on 3 years. And I'm loving it. It just fits into my natural talents, abilities, and I love doing it. And I get to serve a world, and I never thought I would get to do that. But
if there's such thing as magic, that's magic.
Yeah, I get to serve a world. I never expected it, and I never thought that would happen. And I get to do this every week, and it's pretty special, honestly.
Amen.
It's really, really special. Folks, that's Dr. Gary DePaul. And you know what? If he doesn't inspire you, I don't know what else will. Because you know what? When you're inspired, that means you'll inspire others. And when they're inspired, that means they will inspire others in turn. And if we all do that, that can make this world a great place. I'm going to be back next week with another fantastic guest, another great book, and it's going to be another great show. And as I say to you all every week, everywhere, all over the world, merci and ciao, everybody.
You lost your confidence and the answers don't make sense. You got to keep your hope alive. You got to know you can survive. This is your time.